Hi, good morning. My name is Alessandra Caceres, and I'm an immigration writer for the Latina Republic. We are a nonprofit organization that focuses on immigration and refugee reporting to amplify the stories of immigrants in the United States. Through our work, we aim to foster understanding, advocacy, and policy change. Today, I am meeting with Ms. Attorney Robyn Withrow, Assistant District Attorney at the Mecklenburg office, to discuss a program that directly affects the immigrant and refugee community, the U Visa program. Good morning, Attorney Withrow. Thank you for meeting with me. How are you doing?
Hi, good morning. I'm well. I hope you are.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much for meeting with me today to speak about such an important program and the way that it's impacting immigrants and refugees in Charlotte.
Sure.
So kind of to start off the interview, could you please tell me about your position at the district attorney office and how did you end up in your position and what does your daily work look like?
Great. Well, first, thanks for having me. It is the U Visa program's really important everywhere. In the Mecklenburg County DA's office certainly takes our obligations in this program seriously. My name is Robyn Withrow. I am the Chief Operating Officer at the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office. And what does my day look like? Well, it can run the gamut. I'm primarily in charge of four or five categories. My primary obligations relate to managing our personnel, our staff here at the District Attorney's Office. I also manage our budget obligations. I do our projects and technology as well as managing the building. Kind of my fifth area that's in my work, my daily work, is doing expunctions and U visas. So that's what we're here to talk about this morning. U visas. That's one of the five areas in which I work almost daily. So yeah, I've been at the DA's office 18 years. Actually, next week will be my work anniversary. So 18 years ago, I will have started. And I got the job after having a career as a corporate attorney and then as a defense attorney, and kind of worked my way through the office, managing another team before I became the chief operating officer, I guess, in 2010 or 11, something like that.
Awesome. Congratulations on the anniversary. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
So
18
you
years
did,
is a long time.
yeah, that's great. So you mentioned a little about the U Visa program and that being like one of the focuses of your work. I was just wondering if you could give a brief overview of the program, and the work that you do in relation to it. So kind of how does the program work, and what role do you play?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a very narrowly tailored obligation as it relates to U visas. So I can tell you what I know about the program as it relates to our work in it. I am not an immigration attorney. I've never done immigration law. So I'm sure an immigration attorney can give you more details about the ins and outs of how their work in the U visa program comes to pass. The U visa program was created by the Battered Immigrant Women Protection Act, which was passed in the year 2000 by the United States Congress. And the goal was to identify victims of crimes who may be in our country through a means that wasn't legal. So they're undocumented immigrants, if you will. And oftentimes those folks can be the most vulnerable members of our community and therefore may be victimized perhaps even at a higher rate than other members of our community because they tend to have a distrust of law enforcement because they're not here through any legal means. And so what I've found in my work, and I've been working in the U visa area for about 15 years now, 14, 15 years. And what I find is when folks are a victim of a crime, they may seek to stay in this country and have their ability to stay in this country solidified through legal means, if you will, through United States Immigration and Customs. The process is that ordinarily an immigration attorney will file a U visa petition with our office. It's the 918 Supplement B form, which is the law enforcement form that we have to sign, basically saying that the petitioner, most often the victim of a crime, has been the victim of a qualifying offense. They have information that would be helpful in the prosecution of the case, and that they are being cooperative or have been cooperative in the prosecution of the qualifying offense. And that's generally, so what I do is we get the information into our office. I review the petition, I along with an assistant, and we determine whether they qualify for our certification of the 918 B Supplement B form. That's what we do.
Yeah, thank you for that overview. So whenever it comes to looking at the certification form, how did she normally agree to signing on? Are there any normally indicators onto like a specific form that you would be like, I'm kind of iffy about signing, I don't think we should sign? Is that normally something that happens, or do you normally just look through the requirements, such as like you were speaking, being a victim of a crime, or is there like a time period they have to do it under? What do you guys normally look at?
So that's a really good question. There's several things that we look at. First of all, there are 27 enumerated crimes under the Act that perhaps may make a victim eligible for a U visa. Most of those crimes are violent in nature. They're going to be sexual assault cases, domestic violence cases, felonious assault type of cases, human trafficking type cases. And of course, any attempt or solicitation or conspiracy to commit one of those crimes may also be eligible. The type of information that I look at is, one, were they a victim of a qualifying offense? And that is fairly easy to determine. I look at what the offense was charged. I also look at the surrounding facts of a case. Because what was charged is not the end all be all. It's not the determinative factor. There can be other factors that I consider. For example, could this crime have been charged as something else? That may be something that I look at, but I look at the totality of the circumstances to make a determination. First and foremost, were they a victim of a qualifying offense? If they were, and the case has made its way to the district attorney's office to be prosecuted, then I look at the level of cooperation that the victim gave in our office prosecuting the matter. You asked if there's a time frame, and interestingly enough, there's not in the act itself that was passed by Congress. There's not a, if you will, a statute of limitations, but the closer in time to the event, the more likely we are to have proper records demonstrating a victim's cooperation. So even in our policy, our Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office policy, we encourage folks to file for their U visa petition soon after the case has been disposed. And so that way people's recollection is more intact. We're more likely to have the proper documentation to demonstrate whether someone was cooperative or not. So I look at, are they a victim of a qualifying offense, and were they cooperative in the prosecution of that matter?
Yeah, interesting. It's interesting to see how this federal program, how each count or each state kind of interprets it, specifically like county wise, because I know that there's some counties that have more stricter requirements that they kind of look at, but I feel like the Mecklenburg ones, based on kind of what you're telling me, it seems like there are those requirements, but they, in a way, I don't know if the right word would be lenient, but more, I feel like more open-minded as so into kind of looking into those cases, maybe. Would you agree with that?
Well, we're certainly committed to the benefit and the purpose of this act, right? It was initially created with the idea of protecting primarily women. It is part of the Violent Battered Immigrant Women's Protection Act. And so I won't say we're more lenient or more strict than perhaps another jurisdiction. What I will acknowledge is that every jurisdiction's decision to certify U visa petitions is entirely discretionary. This is not a requirement that is placed upon us by the federal law, but our office is, again, committed to the benefit and the purpose envisioned by the act. And so we think it's important we get it right. We're lawyers, we need to follow the law. And I simply look to the act itself and the guidance provided to me by the act. And I make sure that we check the proper boxes. I think that if someone is a victim of a qualifying offense and they have assisted our office, even if the case ultimately doesn't get prosecuted or may even get dismissed, that also is not determinative whether we sign a petition or not. If someone's been a victim of a qualifying offense and they have assisted our office in prosecuting that matter, then I think that the law envisions that they should have their petition certified by our office, and in turn, we do that. We don't decide whether someone is issued a U visa, right? We are just a small part in a much larger process that the immigration folks in Vermont ultimately make that determination. But certainly, I think it goes without saying that if we don't sign a petition, they will not get a U visa. If we do sign it, it doesn't mean that they automatically get it. There's a lot more that goes into, as I understand it, the work that goes on in Vermont through USCIS, and they're the ones ultimately that make the determination whether someone gets a U visa or not.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that and for sharing that. So how many requests do you think that your office normally receives? Maybe is it normally monthly that you receive a certain amount, or how do you kind of go about reviewing those?
Yeah, it really ebbs and flows. There's no specific timetable. I would say that we probably entertain about 300 a year. Some of those are new, most of those are new petitions that haven't come in the door before. Although there are many that are considered recertifications, if you will, where we have previously certified a matter, but USCIS is asking for additional information. So I would say about 300 a year.
Gotcha, 300. Okay. And from those 300 cases that you review, are there any particular cases or stories that you would like to share that kind of stood out to you while you were reviewing that? If you would, then if that makes you comfortable, you could share it.
Yeah, I mean, there was one incident where a victim was fairly far along in their deportation proceedings, and the immigration attorney reached out to me kind of at the last moment to, I guess, the attorney's client had mentioned, hey, I was a victim of a crime, and perhaps that had not come up in previous conversations with their immigration attorney. The case was still pending, and we were able to assist in keeping the victim in this country at the time. And so, you know, whenever we can keep a victim around to assist in the prosecution of a case, that's a good thing. So yeah, there have been a handful of times where ordinarily we don't entertain U visa petitions until the end of a case. And so in this instance, it was during the prosecution of a case, and we were able to assist kind of at the last moment. So that was helpful.
Oh, that's an interesting story. Thank you for sharing that.
And I just want to be really clear, like when we engage in a variance from our policy, we're in no way suggesting the way someone should testify, right? Our job is just saying, yes, we think you should be able to stay here to testify. It's not to say that they testify. We want people to testify honestly, like what happened in the case, just stick to the facts. So they're getting a U visa. It is not contingent on a specific way that they testify. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And kind of speaking on testifying, do you feel that the U visa program has helped more individuals come forward to report crimes and also feel more comfortable testifying against the people who have committed crimes against them?
You know, I don't know the answer to that because I only see the folks that actually file, right? So I don't know how many people are in the community that are continuing to be fearful of that process, right? Because I only see the ones that actually come forward. So I don't have a way to gauge, are there still many folks in the community who are fearful of the legal process? I'm probably not a good gauge for that. Perhaps an immigration attorney would have a better feel for that.
Thank you. And how do you feel that the U visa program benefits not just immigrants or the victims of these crimes, but how do you think that the program benefits the wider community?
So I think that whenever anyone comes forward to report a crime and demonstrates a willingness to see the process through, right, including being cooperative not only with law enforcement, but with our office in prosecuting a case, whenever anyone helps us get a dangerous individual off the street, that benefits our entire community. Whenever we can keep our streets more safe, that's a good thing for everybody, regardless of your status in this country. So I do think that it helps not only the person coming forward, but also our community at the large. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, prioritizing just maintaining safety in the community is very important.
That's right. Yeah.
And are there any changes or improvements that you would like to see in the U visa program, or I guess in the part of the program that you play a role in?
There's a couple things. I think when the act was created some 24 years ago, they decided that the federal government decided that there would only be 10,000 U visas issued every year. And I think that number perhaps should be revisited. You know, I can tell you alone that North Carolina, one of the 50 United States, submits over 1,000 a year, right? And so, you know, that's a tenth of what are going to be processed. It seems to me to make sense that perhaps that number would be revisited. I know that USCIS is consistently changing their forms to make the process a little bit better. I think that there's some things that could be done on the form that could help not only the folks who are having to fill out the forms, but also DA's offices and other law enforcement agencies that are asked to fill out the supplement, the 918B supplement.
Yeah, thank you for your perspective on that. It's really interesting, especially looking at kind of the caps that the federal government has on that. I didn't even realize North Carolina had 1,000. And they definitely should look into doing something about that. So thank you for your
maybe
insight.
they will. Maybe they will. I mean, that cap is 24 years old, so it might be a good time to revisit that number.
Yeah. And then how do you think that community members and organizations can better support the work that you do in the U visa process?
So I've spoken with immigration attorneys on several occasions, primarily before COVID occurred. We were having some regular meetings with immigration attorneys, and really it's getting the word out. It's getting the word out about the program, which I think that our immigration lawyers here locally do a pretty good job with getting the word out. I think the thing that would help me the most, and in turn help folks who are seeking U visa protection, would be to have people save their paperwork and file for their U visa as soon after a case is disposed as possible. Again, we are more likely to have records demonstrating cooperation. People's memory is more intact the closer to the event that it occurs. And it just makes it easier. For example, our domestic violence cases, our misdemeanor domestic violence cases, we only maintain those records for 1 year after a case is disposed of. And so if someone is filing for U visa protection 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, the chances of my being able to independently confirm cooperation of the petitioner is significantly diminished. Whereas if they had filed for their U visa petition within several months of the disposition of the case, I'm much more likely to have information that would assist in their efforts in getting their U visa.
Yeah, definitely. That is very important information. I can make sure to explain some of the resources or the ways that community members can get can kind of spread the word about the program, because that is very essential. And then this is my last question before we wrap up the interview. So what resources do you recommend for victims of crimes, and are there many bilingual resources available to the community?
I know that Safe Alliance, so most of my cases that are U visa petitions are domestic violence. Again, that was kind of the vision for the act, and that is the lion's share of the cases that come across my desk. Certainly Safe Alliance has the ability to assist folks who have been in a domestic violence type situation. And they also have the ability to assist with the Spanish speaking demographic. And so, sure, I think that Safe Alliance is a great place to go. The Center for Legal Advocacy, I get a lot of U visa petitions from the Mecklenburg County Center for Legal Advocacy, and they do a great job in assisting folks who are looking for U visa protection. Those are kind of the two that come to mind that I see the most of. Those are the ones that I see most often.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna definitely look more into them, especially because they do offer those bilingual resources, and it's very important to promote that in the community. But yeah, so that was my last question. I don't know if you'd like to mention anything before we wrap up this interview.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you're helping spread the word about the importance of U visas. Excuse me, it certainly strengthens law enforcement's ability to detect and investigate crimes, and then it assists in our ability to prosecute those crimes. I think that our program, once we got a formal policy in place, has worked much more smoothly than before we had a formal policy in place. And we're happy to be a part of it. I think that we do a pretty good job, along with the law enforcement agencies in Mecklenburg County who entertain U visas as well.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your insight and your perspective on the U visa program and the work that you do. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Attorney Withrow. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, great.